me today on the autoX Bulletin is Mr. Naveen Soni, Senior Vice President, Sales and Marketing at Toyota India. Naveen, welcome. Thank you for joining us. I know you're running short on time, so I'll jump straight into it. We're entering lockdown 4.0, and that means that some restrictions are easing. Toyota had already put out a very detailed restart manual, both for your production facilities as well as dealerships on the sales and service front. But in addition to that, has the lockdown changed the role of digital going forward?
Yes, we did come out with two restart manuals. First one was for production side, which was to set the tone and manner in terms of the new normal, which we have revalidated 3 times as the government has been prescribing various SOP norms. So the manual has been upgraded. Most of the things were covered, but however, really the fine print is very important because it's compliance issue. So we've been upgrading our SOP manual from the plant side for accommodating these things. For the dealership guidance, we had prepared another manual, which was to kind of indicate to them how to kind of welcome the customer and all the things that I mentioned earlier. Now, given this, one of the important things is definitely digital is going to be playing an important role. Now, let me put it this way. It is not, COVID has just accelerated the process of people going digital, right? It was always seen. And in fact, when I came back to sales and marketing at the beginning of this year, I was pleasantly surprised that people started talking a different language in terms of above the line promotions. And they were concentrating and finding digital to be the most cost effective medium also. So what their intention was that, if you have to reach out to customers, how do we best reach out to customers in the most cost effective manner? And digital was proving to be a very important part of that. The main challenge in digital is, of course, reaching out through the right medium to the consumer. So it's you and the consumer, and digital comes between, or even any other newspaper, print, everything comes in between. So which is the most cost-effective medium, and how you can actually most effectively reach out to the consumer is the most important thing. So we have started doing digital promotions in a big way, both by Toyota Kirloskar Motors and also directly by our dealer partners who promoted this various touch points that they have on digital platforms. Now, this has actually helped us. The share of digital business has been growing steadily. This is a low base scenario, but even in this low base, it's grown from at least 15% to about 45% now. Currently, the share of business coming from digital. Now we have to carefully monitor and see what will be the condition going forward. Now the shift that has happened, how I'd like to see this is, the shift that has happened is consumer interest to buy a car comes first. You will never get excited looking at an advertisement to buy a car. Your need to buy a car comes first, and then you look at what is going around in the marketplace, and then look at digital as one medium to gauge what is going on. So that is how it is. So obviously these leads and inquiries that are coming through digital is a clear indication that the consumer is spending a lot of time on digital medium. He feels that is safer. Even getting a newspaper inside the house was at one point of time be considered as an unsafe thing, which I don't think so is a right way to approach things. Having said that, I think these are also linked to behavioral change patterns. My son, for example, may not have read the newspaper in his entire life, but he knows more about what's going on across the globe than me. So these are things that I think we have to adopt. These are things as marketeers, we keep on evolving and see that that finally we service the customer in the best possible way.
So, as you rightly said, there's no question that the number of leads that your dealerships will get, or you as a company will get from digital, are going up. Even during the lockdown, we saw on our own website that, especially from the point of view of people checking out specs and new cars and stuff, was definitely increasing. So there's a lot of interest on that front. But what about the fact that people are saying that there's a shift from people going into dealerships and actually, kicking the tires and looking at these cars and touching and feeling them, because it's such a tangible product at the end of the day. What about the shift from that to a completely online sort of retail channel?
See, various manufacturers are kind of assimilating various touch points in terms of how each of these things can be converted into a digitized form. Today's environment is totally different. I think what is important for us to understand is what will be the scenario or what will be the consumer behavior post a vaccine discovery of COVID. you know Today's environment is perforce. People talk about personal mobility gaining ground, or it never gives me joy. If
Yeah.
we are selling cars, we'd like to see people happily using these cars for the purpose of mobility from point A to point B, and not coming under any pressure to buy a car, to move from point A to point B. So similar goes for digital. Digital is important. And as I said before, even the COVID impact has struck us. There was a clear shift that was visible, that we had to go towards digital marketing. And from a cost effectiveness point of view, I think it proved to be a much better direct one-to-one marketing you could do. So that is the form and shape in which digital is evolving. Still, I think what will prelude digital marketing is a lot of digital data analytics and artificial intelligence. If these two can be combined with digital, then I think you will have a very, very robust model. And I think, then what comes to you as a consumer A may not be true for consumer B. But if I can adapt what is your requirement based on my understanding of what you think is important, then you'll be more receptive to receive that message from me, rather than one size fit all kind of a branding messaging that we normally end up doing. That cannot happen in newspapers, that cannot happen in print. So obviously digital has that advantage, and I think if it is combined with artificial intelligence and data analytics, I think a lot more can be done. Big data churning, all these things are things that marketers have to learn, so that we can quickly resolve any consumers' issues that may be coming up.
So while we're on the subject of data and digital, a lot of consumers these days are getting attracted by the connected car technology that is now being made more and more available. What is the status as far as Toyota is concerned on that front?
See, I think readiness point of view, being a global company, I think readiness point of view, it has never been a challenge for us, because what is coming to India now, I distinctly remember 2014 or 15 when I went to US for a different seminar for Toyota. That time I was not doing marketing job, and somebody was telling me that you'll hear this term very frequently now in marketing, called connected cars. Now this is slowly becoming a reality with us also. A few enablers have to be there in terms of having connected cars, which I think the government will resolve as time goes by. And also, I think the infrastructure plays a very important role. You can't have two cars talking to each other where the road signals are not synchronized with each other, or the road signals and markings are not appropriately designed. So it works in a very structured environment. So that has to come first. And technology point of view, either OEMs or support from outside can definitely help in solving these problems. We think that the future of automobiles is mobility sharing and car sharing, and such kind of platforms, etc. That we think even manufacturers like us will have to adopt to those criteria. So it's a matter of time, but I think the movement is in the right direction, and sooner than later, I think we'll have more and more things visible in this domain.
And what kind of time frame, just a rough time frame, would you put to that? I mean, because it makes a difference in terms of your...
Depends. See, when you're talking about connected cars also, there are various levels of, when you're talking about autonomous cars, for example, there's level 1 to level 5. So it can start immediately. It can grow from level 1 to level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, in a step-by-step manner. But I think the momentum has started. It all depends on the need of the hour, how much the market is willing to adopt to these new technologies, because obviously our mobility needs are still at a very basic level to go from point A to point B. And if you look at the population that we have and the number of cars that we have, still by those yardsticks, I think we're still far away from maturing that motorized market that we see in overseas markets, where every household has 2 or 3 cars. I'm not saying that is a prerequisite. Sometimes you can skip steps also. But I think the need of the hour would be that, that we have to go through these steps. So I think visibility point of view, it has already started. People are talking about it, and no sooner connected car technologies will get more and more deeper inside vehicles, and that will help various new businesses also to bloom up, and that is how things will evolve.
From a macro point of view, there's been a lot of talk about the recent stimulus package. While there's nothing specifically for the auto industry, there is talk of a scrappage policy, maybe a draft coming out in about a month or so. But aside from that, because the response from the market has been quite tepid, the stock market, what is your take on the stimulus package?
Well, I think, yes, goes without the fact that, that 20 lakh crores has been kind of made visible into the system in terms of, various forms and shapes that it has taken. The main reason why I think the market is responding in the way it is responding is basically because the demand side has not been fully accelerated. The supply side, I mean, if the bank is flush, and they were flush with funds also, in the total mathematics when the finance minister showed the numbers, you could very clearly see that, the RBI had actually doled out a lot of money to the banking institutions. But the challenge therefore is that that is one way to stimulate the market. But if government, I think these are various opinions that we can air. But I think from improving the demand side sentiment will be an important role to play, because a consumer will tomorrow have to wake up in the morning and say, I need to have a car. Because then comes the reason, okay, because the taxes are more streamlined, the buying process is simpler, I am safer in my own car. These are things happen. But the mind of the consumer has to be motivated to kind of to that level. And there are various ways to, stimulate that demand. That is where I think we need to see more action. And I'm saying this basically because even if they have to look at a rationalization of taxes, for example, GST, which is what I'm talking about, I think the government will have to look at the comprehensive package of, by reducing the GST, what will be the total increase of the market, and therefore their revenues are not suffering. As a government, they have to be concerned about, because that's this only whole source of income generation for them. If you can see, 50% of the manufacturing industry comes from automobiles. And in terms of taxes on a monthly basis, we contribute to 15% or plus alpha of the total revenues that is collected on GST front. So if that is the case, then obviously the government will be very skeptical in terms of reduction of the duties, because nobody wants to see the size of the pie going down. But what we've been trying to tell them in the past also is that, that by that mathematics, if you see the profit square or the total square, that is rate times the quantity, I think if it is the same, then I think it helps build the customer sentiment. So those demand side measurements, I think, will have to be taken out.
And does there appear to be, are they receptive to that message? Does that seem to resonate at the moment?
I see, it's even if he's receptive till you hit, till you see those things happen. I think they can understand these mathematics, but these are all possible scenarios, hypotheses that you and I can build and then nicely package them. But the most important thing for them is to see whether it is really going to result into their revenues drop or increase. Yeah. Nobody wants to see revenue drop, including private or government for that matter.
Yeah. Yeah. The other challenge with the timing of the lockdown and this pandemic has been on the BS6 front. What is the status at your end? Has it been a relatively smooth transition as planned, or are there any additional issues?
Touchwood, we were out of this much earlier because staying one step ahead of this issue has always helped us in various transitions that have happened. We had tried to taper out our BS4 cars starting, I think, mid of last year. and then slowly started to introduce the BS6 cars as we went along. And towards the end of last year, we had practically, but for our Innova and Fortuner, we had graduated to entire BS6 versions. On the 27th of January this year was the last Innova and Fortuner BS4 that was produced, and thereon everything was BS6. We could have done this earlier also. Again, I say, being an MNC has its own advantages that you cannot be depending only on one country. The market is dependent on many countries. So in India case, since other markets had BS6 technology, so that was never a threat for us. But the challenging point was that if we were to introduce those BS6 in diesel forms, then fuel availability becomes a challenge. So we were monitoring the fuel availability. Once we are confident that fuel will be available, so then we appropriately timed our product introduction. And once it was done, all my dealers had practically nearly zero stock on BS4 when the BS6 was being introduced. As I said, because we were tapering out the BS4 earlier also. So that was the case, and so therefore, yes, the market did suffer a lot because of this transition and the COVID impact, and even RTOs were shut. So I fully empathize with my other OEMs who were struggling at that point of time to sell out the stocks. But as I said, touchwood, staying ahead of the curve always has its own advantages.
And what has been the impact on your model lineup in terms of drivetrains and AdBlue tanks, etc.?
Well, those are various routes that one can take to adopt to these technologies. So as far as the product lineup is concerned, it is back to normal as much as we wanted it. There was some product rationalization that we did, especially on the Innova front. As you know, we discontinued the 2.7 liter engine, and then we had the 2.4 liter as a standard, which we felt was from a consumer point of view also giving us a feedback that was sufficient. So we managed with that. And then, the good thing was that while this is pre-COVID, during February and March, when we were selling the BS6 Innova Fortuners, which was being sold against a heavily discounted BS4 on the other side. If I'm a consumer, I have a choice. Either I go in for a discounted BS4 car or a BS6 Innova or Fortuner. So we were happy to see that consumers were coming back to adopting these technologies, because they were far-sighted in terms of the resale price impact which will come to them when they start selling these cars. And it was so heartening to see that within a month and a half, we had order bank of at least 1 month waiting for Innova, which was a big surprise for us. And then Fortuner was nearly 41 days. So we were trying to cope up with that demand situation, and when we closed down, therefore, those orders were with us. Now we are reaching out to those customers and seeing as and when they require the vehicles, we'll be supplying them. Yeah.
And what about the Corolla? What is the future of the Corolla in India?
Well, Corolla, we had to take a hard decision because we had to free the plant capacity for getting in new and better models from the future. Better technologies, different technologies, etc. So that preparation had to be done. So given these facts, we had to take a decision that Corolla will have to exit the Indian car market. From a new consumer point of view, that segment also has a very predominant share shifting to SUVs and MUVs in that segment. So that also was a deciding factor. Having said that, we will fully support our consumers for parts and services at our dealerships. We are still servicing Polis for that matter.
Yeah. And what about the Velfire? Because the timing of the launch again of the Velfire was sort of a little put under a question mark just by virtue of the pandemic. So what happens to that model in terms of trying to generate?
Nobody saw the pandemic coming, unfortunately. But even if we had, there was nothing much we could have done. The Velfire had a roaring start for us, and what was surprising for us was smaller centers, B and if not the usual Delhi, Bombay kind of a market scenario. It was the smaller markets, like for example, Hyderabad gave us some 30-35% of the orders. So we were actually, we did the launch of the product in Hyderabad for that, to respect the customers that who had adopted this car. And there was about, because it is an imported car, so we imported from Japan in CPU condition. So obviously we were bringing it from there, and this was having a 2 months waiting period scenario. That is what was the condition. But we'll see once the market starts, how the market responds.
So while we're on the subject of imported cars and CBUs and the fact that now for limited volumes you don't need homologation, there are two of your cars which one I've driven very recently, which is the new Supra, which I have to say developed in partnership with BMW, and personally I preferred the Supra to the new Z4.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
And one of the other cars that I've driven a few years ago now, but which is fantastic on the more affordable side, is the GT86. Any chance of any of these cars coming in either as halo models or very niche sort of models?
You're right. These would be niche models. We are considering various options at this point of time, including these two models that you're talking about. The challenging part is that when you go closer to the fine print, when you look at the fine print of the 2005, so this is where I think we'll have to align our government thinking also. There is one ministry which comes out with this regulation saying 2,500 is homologation free. But there's another ministry which comes in and says, no, but the steering wheel, the wheel rim and the glass of that vehicle should be tested here locally. So I mean, as much as I would like to understand the Make in India thing, which we are trying to support, but for this 0.0001% of the imported cars, for the consumers and from our manufacturer's point of view, we'd like to bring in newer technologies and test them out before we can localize them. So there is a mix of the regulations. So while one side is talking about free imports without homologation, the other side is talking about part homologation. So sometimes things are very complicated. But yes, we will continue to study these things, and wherever there's a possibility, we'd like to come into the market.
And looking at your Suzuki alliance in the Indian market, what is next on that front?
Well, I have, visibility as much as probably you would have on this issue, because there are decisions that are taken in Japan, and most of them get transferred down to us. And then once they reach us, then we kind of, understand what is the condition. So this alliance is for the mid to long term, from our point of view, sharing of technologies, from their point of view, bringing in more better technologies. So on and so forth. So from the exchange point of view, I think it's a very good fit, and I think it has a good future. And we'd like to follow whatever head office decides.
Yeah, and from the Glanza Baleno point of view, what has that taught you so far?
It's been people were talking about whether co-badging actually has succeeded in this country, and I would say yes. There is a very good example of this car being sold by our dealerships. So the kind of customers who approach us, and the kind of, probably I like to believe that the kind of customers that come to Maruti Suzuki showroom or Nexa showroom, I think have very clear priorities. They would like to buy this car from wherever they would like to, and this option has been given to them. And I think this co-badging has been successful. It has grown from 1,800 to 2,500 to going upwards pre-COVID. We'll have to see where post-COVID what is the response.
Yeah, and what lessons can we, I know we're running short on time, so just a couple more.
Yeah.
But what lessons can you take from the existing model into the next model, which is the Vitara Brezza and then the Toyota equivalent?
These are, I think, decisions that we have to, kind of make sure that the product offering, when you offer that product from your dealership, the kind of customer that you are attracting is... India, as I always say, is a hugely stratified, homogeneous market. At various price points, at every this thing, there is a customer waiting for the product. And if you can position the product appropriately from a marketing point of view, then there will be a customer waiting for you. So these are things that we have to distinguish. The differentiations will be more and more on the product per se, but obviously the whole idea is to synergize. So at some stage it will be kind of synergized also.
Yeah, and final question on the hybrid front, because Toyota has been a very big proponent of hybrid technology. What is the current status, and what is the way forward as far as hybrid technology is concerned in India?
We definitely have said this, and we keep on saying this. I think various technologies will have various space in the future. Hybrid is one of those technologies which helps, in reduction of how should I say, in terms of the reduction of the carbon footprint, improving the fuel efficiency, getting better mileage, giving more speed, and is quieter. So there is a role that hybrid has in the future, and the consumer is free from tensions like, where is the next charging station, or how long the car will go without the charge. Next charge has to be given. So I think from a very pragmatic standpoint, I think it helps a lot in terms of, having these kind of technologies. Yeah. And we'll continue to put our weight behind it.
Thank you for your time, and thank you for your insights. And I hope now that workshops, showrooms, etc. are opening, we can start to get back to normal sooner rather than later.
Hopefully, yes. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.